Hello everyone, this is Kaz from Conscious Explorers, and in today's video I'd like to talk about death. So my friend John was asking, does the ego survive death? And if it doesn't, like what's the point in anything surviving it, because we're not even going to know about it or feel about it, and it's just going to be awful because we're not going to be there. Also my friend Meg was asking me about past lives in relation to the paradigm that I was explaining before. So I'm going to cover both those things very quickly. So in the previous paradigm I spoke about how life is really like a dream, where you think that you're one character looking out of a particular pair of eyes, but actually you're everything in it. You just don't have that awareness. Now, if we sort of relate this to greater consciousness, let's imagine that greater consciousness is everything. That's a pretty standard idea. So greater consciousness is everything, it's everywhere, all of the time. And that makes it very static. Everything, pure potential, all happening at once. There's no movement in that and there's no surprises. So what would pure consciousness have to do in order to create, to have new experiences? Well, it would have to divide and separate itself to create form, different form, in which different interactions between those forms could create new things. So let's imagine that greater consciousness is light. Let's imagine that it's infinite light. So you've got infinite light everywhere. And then it starts to create shapes, because it can create whatever it wants. It's everything. So it creates shapes, and the shapes give a form that block the light. So it's a bit like this. This has a shape to it, and it has holes in it. And if this room was just pure light and I wasn't in it, what we would see is that, you know, the light would come out of it in certain ways. So if you imagine that people are like that, I am like that. I'm a shape and there's light coming out of me in certain ways, like there is with you. We aren't really this shape. This shape is just kind of like a mask. But when it's allowed to flow freely, when the light just is able to come out freely, that's when we feel good. And when there's blocks to that, that's when we feel depressed, because we feel disconnected from the oneness of everything. And it's only that we feel that we are contained here because our perspective has been like limited. In reality, we solve everything. So that's just a sort of perception, and that's part of the experience that is being created with this form and the shape. So what happens when you die? Well, I think that there are various things that can happen when you die. One is that you can lose the, you do lose the sort of physical form, if you like, and then you could return just to being the light. Just, you know, if you just pulled this away, the light would just join the rest of the light, basically. But if you want to have the experience where the ego, this current sort of ego, which I have a sense of is in this shape, I think that's also possible, because that's another experience that can happen. So, you know, infinite consciousness is wanting to just create experiences of all sorts. So if your little bit of the infinite consciousness wishes to survive death in the shape that it has, I think that that is something that can be achieved. But if you didn't do that, would it feel awful to lose the form that you're familiar with? No, because it would feel amazing, because you would just join the oneness of everything. And this is what happens when you meditate. Like when you're trying to meditate, it often does feel awful, because you're kind of holding on and you're like got all these thoughts in your head, and actually it's the ego that's making you feel like crap. But when you can actually quieten the mind, and you become still, the awareness, your awareness expands, and actually then you become like reconnected to the whole. So in the same respect, do past lives exist? Well, in one sense, no, they don't exist, because all we have is rendered nows. There isn't really any time. There is a sense of time. That's a very different thing, but there isn't really any time. There isn't really any past anywhere. However, can you be in an experience of where you have had past lives? Can this be all part of your now narrative? Yes, absolutely. Anything can be, in fact, potentially. And there are perhaps certain rules that define the now narratives that we can have here in this particular plane. So the answer about past lives existing, well, it's a yes and no. And the answer about whether you will survive death with your ego, again, yes or no. But in a way, it's kind of up to you. You have that choice, I believe. So I hope that's helpful. I feel like I've missed something out. I'll make another video. Thanks for listening. Lots of love.